tutorial on how to make a silverware pendant. First thing that you're going to need is a Dremel tool, and you're going to need a variety of attachments. You're going to need at least a cutting wheel and some grinding stones, wire brush, and this is a buffing. I call it basically steel wool on steroids. You'll need some decorative silverware, old ones. And for today, I'm going to use this piece of silverware. The first thing that you want to do is to mark your silverware where you want to cut it. I'm going to make a nice little drop pendant out of this, so I'm going to mark it probably right about here to about here. Actually, I think I'm going to go a little bit higher, so I'm going to go ahead and mark it. And the next thing that we're going to do is cut it. First thing we want to do is put a cutting wheel on your Dremel. And I have Dremel parts flying now. Now, since I have this wonderful Dremel bench, I normally keep my battery out. I have a battery. And then put it in just for a safety precautionary measure. Make sure that you always wear some type of PPE, personal protection equipment. And go ahead and start cutting. As you see, I have my cut piece. It's kind of uneven, but that is okay, because the next thing we're going to do is use this cutting wheel as a mini grinder. Now, because of friction, your piece of metal is going to get hot, so you can either use a pair of pliers to kind of hold it, or you can do what I do and use a paper towel. The next thing we're going to do is basically smooth this out and kind of give it a round appearance. As you can see, I'm starting to get a nice round appearance. I'm going to work on this a little bit longer to finish it off. Once I get it to the shape that I want, using the metal cutting wheel, and I also use it as a grinder, I'm going to let this cool off just a wee bit. while I'm letting that cool off, I'm going to remove my battery here so I can switch out to a grinding wheel. I have pieces flying here. Replace my battery. If you're using a plug-based Dremel, I would just suggest to unplug it. It's just a safety issue with me. You never know when your Dremel's going to bite you. I'm going to take back that piece, and the next thing we're going to do is get rid of all the little burrs that we've created with that cutting wheel. Kind of smooth them out. I just want to make a quick note. I'm doing the back side here. It's the non-decorative part of the piece. It has a little bit of decoration here, but I'm just kind of going partly down with the grinder just to kind of smooth it out and make it a little flat. I think I'm pretty happy with the shape now. And now we're going to clean up the pendant piece and drill a hole. But first of all, I like to take my wire brush and clean it up. So I'm going to switch out the Dremel tool pieces again. Once again, I removed my battery. Put on my wire brush. And now replace my battery. Put back on my eye protection. As you can see, it's starting to clean up all that dust and grit and old patina that was on there. So we're going to continue doing this all the way front and back. Now I'm done cleaning it up, and we are going to figure out where we want to drill our hole. With this one, I am just going to drill a nice little hole up here on the top. So I'm going to mark it. Now, you cannot drill a hole and put an actual jewelry finding on here for the sleeve for the chain to go through. However, with this one, I'm going to be adding, I think, some beads to it. So I'm going to go ahead and mark a hole right about there. Well, I'm going to set up the Dremel to drill this hole and be right back. As you can see, I have switched my Dremel. I now have it vertical instead of horizontal, and I have very, very, very tiny bit. I use actual jewelry bits, and the size I'm using is a 12. It's this one right here. Now, I am going to actually hand hold this, because since this is an odd size, it won't quite fit in my drill, my press right here. Excuse me, my vise. So I'm going to kind of close this up a little and use my fingers to guide it. And hold on to it. Put my battery back in. Now have a hole. I'm going to set my Dremel tool back to the horizontal position, and we're going to finish off this pendant. The next tool I'm going to use is what I call the still wool on steroids. It's actually a finishing buffing wheel. I go through a lot of these because I think they're absolutely fabulous, because they really get a lot of the imperfections and they just really clean up the piece a lot. I can't even, you'll see once we do it. I'm going to put this piece in. Don't forget your eye protection. Put my battery. As you can see, how much is cleaned up the piece. It's really smoothed it out. I love this accessory to the Dremel. I can't even express words. It just really cleans up the spots, and it really makes all this area here nice and smooth. The next part we're going to do is finish up off the pendant, add the findings, and we will be done. Okay, I've cleaned up my area, and now the next thing that we're going to do is actually work on the pendant, make it into an actual jewelry pendant. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take some steel wool, some fine steel wool, and just polish it up with my steel wool. Kind of give it a nice shine. And I'm going to wipe it down. So it's nice and clean. Normally I wash these with soap and water before I start working on them, after I use the steel wool on them, but I'm not going to do that today. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is actually lay out the pendant. I decided that I'm going to add some stones to it, so I'm going to add probably this stone here, and then maybe a little heart right here with the stone. So we just basically lay it all out. and see if we're gonna like that. I think I'm gonna like it without the heart. So I'm gonna remove the heart over here and put it in my goodie box. Okay. Then I'm gonna start add one of these. Add this on. This is kind of a figure-8 finding. Let me zoom in on that so you can see. So if I just bring it up to the camera here. That figure-8 finding there. I love these for pendants. Okay. Work on my... This is actually a dental tool that I found here in Germany. One side of it is concave through here, and then the other side of it's just like the rosary pliers that you buy normally to make loops. I love it because it basically does this really quick for me. Straighten that out. We now have our pendant. At this time, if you wanted to, you can add like another little stone right here. Here's one that I have pre-done, just to kind of lay it out, but I don't think I like it so much. So I'm going to leave this plain. The next thing you're going to do is actually either add your cording, and this is just a piece of silk cording that I'm going to use for effect. And there you go, you have a pendant. What you also can do with the silverware pendants is add little findings, brass findings and so forth to them. Here is one that I did that I'm still kind of working on. I added a brass finding here for the chain. Take some steel wool. Now I always use like some type of rag or something when I'm doing the steel wool because you're getting a lot of this metal flake, and it just helps when you clean up your area, keep your area clean by using another rag. Now with this piece, I had actually trimmed this part out, this section's out, and then added the brass finding because it was a little too thick. So I took the Dremel and literally carved those out. With this one, I'm not quite pleased on how clean it's looking, so what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of Tarnex and some cotton. And put a little bit on my cotton ball. And just kind of clean it up a little bit. Now with Tarnex, you don't want to leave it on the piece of jewelry more than 2 minutes. That's what they suggest. And I agree with that. So as you can see, it really does clean up the jewelry. I'll wipe that down and I'm going to rinse it here. But just to let people know what Tarnex is, here's an old, I actually looked for another part. It's a little more yucky. Here we go. Here's some silverware parts. And what Tarnex does is actually get rid of that tarnish. Literally, that's why it's called Tarnex. As you can see, just wiping it down, how clean it gets it. Now, if you wanted to, you could actually use the Tarnex beforehand. You start cutting on your silverware. But me personally, I don't like using Tarnex a lot because it is a chemical. As you can see, just that little bit. I'm still using that same amount that was on that cotton ball that I did earlier. You just need a little bit. But Tarnex actually works for sterling silver, silver plate, platinum, copper, gold, and it actually does clean diamonds too. It's the main reason why I have it, to clean my wedding rings. Because I have a bad habit of not taking off my rings when I'm working. So, I'm going to rinse off the pendant that we were just working on. Here's another one. I think I might as well do this one. This is another one that I had added brass findings to. I added the right here, and I added this for the chain, and I just added this little piece right here that I had laying around, and it just happened to work out perfectly for this pendant. Now with this pendant, I did not use the Dremel so much on getting rid of the black, the old varnish, because I thought it kind of added more character to the piece. However, I am going to clean it up a little bit with this Tarnex, so it'll get rid of some of the black, but not a lot. I kind of like the old tarnish on this pendant. This is actually one of my personal pendants. You can use it for the chain too. And with this chain, this was like a 5-foot chain that I basically cut to 18 inches. I added a little made with love charm. And I will be adding lobster claws to it. So I'm going to rinse this off. Now it's very important that you rinse those off with hot water if you do use the Tarnex. And then take a nice dust-free towel. In this instance, I'm using Viva paper towels. And just clean them off. And there you have it, your pendants. It looks like this one, it's starting to come loose. So you either can weld it or do what I'm doing and using a metal glue. Move this off to the side. I'm going to fix that. So one thing about Tarnex, if you're using any type of metal glues or any glues at all, it will dissolve those glues. So I do highly suggest that you do, if you are going to use it to clean your spot, is to use it before you do a lot of major gluing. Okay. Now I just glued that with some metal glue that I had. And I'm just going to let that cure for a good 72 hours. And then I'll make sure that I clean up around the areas. And once again, we have the pendants. Just to give you some ideas, here's some pendants that I'm kind of working on. This one I added a brass binding right here, and I just need to do some cleaning up, and I think I'm going to go ahead and add a drill hole. At the time I thought I was going to put another type of binding up on top, but I think I'm going to go ahead and drill a hole. And here's one that I start working on, some beautiful roses all through here. And actually this was the end of the silverware, and this is the part that I cut off, but I shaped it a little bit more. I added a more oval shape to it. And I'm going to flip this upside down, drill another hole right here, and have a nice bead dangling at the end, like so. This is not the bead that I'm going to use, but as you can see, for effect. So with silverware, it's endless, and just because you cut off something, keep it, because you never know what you can use it for. Like this piece, I pounded out the fork, and I plan on setting it in some plaster in Paris in a nice little vase, and then I'll bend back these like so. And we'll use them for recipe card holder or even a photo holder. So don't throw out those bits. Even with the spoons, you can pound these out, heat them up, pound them out, and cut them into heart shapes and make really nice pendants. Well, I hope you liked the tutorial on how to work with silverware, how to make it into a pendant, and some other things. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me at sandra@artofsandra.com. And don't forget to tell your friends about these tutorials. Talk to you later.